All right, welcome back. Just in case you're joining us this morning on AM Live, my name is Winnie Luvuma, sitting in for Olive Barrows, and we're having a very important conversation because, like I said, September is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we cannot end the month without talking about something that is of a very big concern, and this is as far as suicide is concerned, a very growing concern, if I can say that. So today on the show, we are actually tackling the case, and we're asking, so is it a mental or is it a criminal case? And we are asking a very big question, and that is, first of all, why is it a criminal case? And we'll be looking at the gaps, the law, and the growing concern. My guest in studio today, we have Dr. Frank Njenga, who, again, was the chair, the Mental Health Task Force, very, very instrumental. And there's a report which we'll be referring to as we continue with the conversation. And this is as far as, first of all, happiness. Right here in the country. Thank you so much, Dr. Ari, for joining us this morning. We have Sylvia Kasanga, rather. Hey, Kale, the Kale is making out strongly. Former nominated senator, but most importantly, in today's conversation, a mental health champion. Good to have you this morning. And we also have Lumalas Eunice, who is an advocate and arbitrator from Black Advocates. And of course, she's here to tell us, first of all, why is it a criminal offense, all right, here in the country, and what is it that we can do? Because according to Section 226 of the Penal Code, anyone who attempts to kill himself or herself is guilty of a misdemeanor, and the punishment is 2 years in prison, a fine, or both, and the minimum age of prosecution is 8 years old. So, again, what is the impact of the same? And this is as far as this penal code is concerned. What is the impact of the same? And this is when it comes to suicide prevention. But like I said, we'll be referring to the task force report a little bit, and this is as far as mental health is concerned, because there's a very direct link between mental health and suicide as well. And I was just, yes, like I said, reading this, mental health and well-being towards happiness and national prosperity. And this is a report by the Task Force on Mental Health in Kenya. And of course, there are a number of recommendations by the task force. And even as I look for the same, Dr. Frank, you are very instrumental, you know, in this. I was just, first of all, let's get to understand, how are we doing as a country when it comes to mental health? We'll talk about suicide a little bit, because there's a very, you know, scanty data when it comes to suicide. And the big question is, first of all, why don't we have data? But let's first of all analyze mental health here in the country. How are we doing? Are we, because like the task force said, we're what, the fourth most depressed country? But yes, how are we doing really as far as mental health is concerned right here in the country?
Today is Monday?
Yes.
I will start with good news.
Okay, we love good news, please.
This country, and be known to the world generally, and to Kenyans also, is way, way, way ahead of the rest of the world, actually, in many, many parameters relating to the subject of mental health.
All right.
However, the fact that we feel that we are not as good as we actually are is a good thing, because it then sets up in competition, not with the little countries around us who are very badly off, but with ourselves.
Okay.
So our pursuit for constant improvement, I think, is a very, very good thing for us. You're thinking to yourself, what is the evidence for what this guy is saying?
Yeah.
A lot of evidence. Number one, you've referred to the task force report. Now, the task force report that did not come about out of the blue.
Yeah.
It was the culmination of the effort of many, many, many Kenyans, including Sylvia here, professional and lay people, and the media, including the Nation Media Group, who forced the government of the day to declare, I think on the 1st of June in Narok, President Kenyatta made this statement, that we have a national disaster of one sort or another. And unless we do something about it, our country will go into pieces. He referred to violence against women and so on and so forth. So the task force was put in place to create a foundation for future development around the country. When we delivered this report to Mutahi Kagwe, then Minister in charge of Health, on the 7th of July, Sabasaba Day, the foundation was laid. And the consequence of that is that we have a number of very important documents. The first document is a policy. Not every country in Africa has a policy. Yeah, we have an action plan. We have an investment case for investing in mental health. We have a rapidly growing population of psychiatrists. Now we are graduating maybe 30 psychiatrists every year in this country. The number of psychologists and counselors that we have in this country is unmatched in any part of this country. The fact that we are here today, and I know that last Friday there was a big symposium, again put together by the Nation Media Group. The amount of activity around mental health, the number of young men and women who call mental health facilities and say, my name is Njuguna. I think I have a major depressive disorder. Can I see a counselor? Is increasing. In other words, much as we found very high levels of stigma barely 3 years ago, we are chipping away steadily and effectively against the whole thing of stigma against mental health in a way that no other country on this continent and in many other parts of the world is doing. So allow me to start on a happy note. We are doing well, but we must continue to compete only amongst ourselves because we are way ahead of everybody else.
I mean, and I like that the fact that you're starting with the good news, but I read a bad somewhere in there. There's a bit of a bad.
There is bad news. There is bad news in the sense that, again, as the task force report shows, we are, as Kenyans, investing. I don't even think Kenyans know this term, ndururu. Ndururu is a very small amount of money that doesn't exist anymore. It's so much less than 1 shilling. Ndururu moja per capita per annum for the care of mental health. The recommended amount of money for investment in mental health in any country is 250 shillings per person per annum. So we are investing 0.0001% of what we are expected to do. My hope and expectation is that through all our collective efforts, we will pressurize our government to increase the budgetary allocation for mental health because, as was demonstrated very, very clearly by a recent study, investing in the mental health, particularly of young people, of the youth, has returns greater than investing in infrastructure, like roads and railway lines. Because you invest in young people's mental health, you get huge amounts of return on education, on health, on crime, on drug abuse. So really, we will continue to advocate in the way that we are doing, because investing in the mental health of young people has incredible returns. And the evidence of that is sitting at the Ministry of the Health headquarters and is available to Treasury and is available to members of Parliament. It is available everywhere you like.
Okay, I see that. We'll come back to you then to understand. So what is the biggest challenge? What is the biggest concern? And again, like you're saying, among so many young people, because now a lot of them are very vocal. You know, as far as mental health is concerned, as compared to a few years ago, where we would hardly talk about it, think about it. That was a taboo, you know, and you talk about go see a counselor, go see a psychiatrist, and go see a therapist. And people would look at you and be like, Kwani, you're very weak. You cannot handle your problems. You're not the first person who's going through this. But now we're seeing a lot of conversation and a lot of action, but still we have so much, you know, to do as far as mental health is concerned. And one of the things that happened last year, I mean, no, this year, that is the annual Global Mental Health Action Network meeting, which took place in South Africa in like 2 months ago. 46 countries were present, and one of the key conversations that came out from the same was the decriminalization of the same and also funding, which I'm really, really happy that you pointed out, you know, the whole aspect about funding. But Sylvia, let's talk to you before we come back to Eunice to explain to us why is it a criminal offense right here in the country. This is very personal to you, right? And I was reading through one of the reports that were done, and you said you used to get like headaches, you know, here and there, and you thought, it's just headache. kumbe, there was so much happening, you know, behind the scenes. So can we just go back very quickly so that we really understand why this is important to you? Because you also sponsored a bill, right, in Parliament as well. But before that, can we just get to understand how this is personal to you?
Okay. So I hope that when we do another round, you'll have the doctor in the house give us a good definition of what is mental health. I think it's always important that we always start from defining.
From the basics, yes.
So that the listeners can really understand what are we really talking about. There's mental health, there's mental illness, you know, and it's good. It's always good to have that definition done every one time. Yeah. So I'm happy that the doctor is here.
Dr. Frank is here.
So that he can give us that. But for me, it was because I came to understand. Some time back, long before, I even thought that anxiety and depression and stress or panic attacks are mental health issues. You know, you don't relate. No. I didn't relate the two. But yes, I have been treated. And that is after months and months of going to hospital. You're diagnosed. In fact, you spend so much money on diagnosis, right? Oh, go do this scan, go do this, heart palpitations, what, I'm not sleeping, headache tablets, constant, in and out of hospital for almost 6 months. Until one doctor decides, you know what, maybe you need to see a psychologist. And my first reaction is that, no, I don't need a psychologist, I'm okay. So you continue with the cycle of, you know, headaches, until you finally give in and say, you know what, let me just go and see a psychologist. Maybe they might help me. So when you get, I got help. Actually, I did therapy for 4 months. And I came out of it. And, you know, what therapy does is also instills a lot of self-awareness in you. And you see, when you have a good sense of self-awareness, then you're able to gauge yourself, know your triggers, then know how to, you know, how to relate to yourself when you're having highs and lows, and then you're able to pick yourself up and move on. So for me, is that I understood that. When I got into Parliament and the question of mental health was brought to my desk, still then, I had not quite related that what I had suffered was mental health. They still, you know, the stigma around mental health is that anyone who's mentally unwell is, you know, the person, the madman in the street, you know, the psychosis and those adverse mental health issues. But I did get somebody who came to speak to me and, you know, tied the whole thing together and gave me a good concept of what really is mental health, starting from the daily stresses that we have, you know, to the disorders that you pick up because you are stressed, you have anxiety, you're trying to, you know, deal and cope with a situation that you're not, you know, strengthened to cope with. So you go into food, eating disorders, drinking, and all that stuff, up to the adverse effects of mental health and mental illnesses, which I'm sure the doctor here will speak to. When I got to understand that, I said to myself, it is critical that Kenyans understand this. Because the more we understand, the more awareness we have, the more understanding of the detail, the better at dealing with it. From a personal level, and now from as a nation, as what the doctor is saying, as a nation. And I agree with him that we've come such a long way. When we first published the bill in 2018, there was barely a conversation on mental health. From there, we have a report. We have so many reports have been done. He was the advisor of the president. In fact, you didn't speak on the level 6. You must speak on the level 6 that they were doing just towards the end of the last, you know, presidency. And then come now this new government, you know, the gap, the funding gap that he's talking about is probably relating to our leaders not understanding really what we are dealing with. In fact, I think there should be a session where we should take them all together in a room and talk to them, especially the governors. And I tried. I really did try, because I did write a letter to the Council of Governors once the bill became an act, just to bring to attention that we have now an act of parliament that requires that, you know, county governments are now involved with mental health issues. And my expectation at that time was that there would be a budget line in all CIDPs, which were being prepared around that time. And that was the call I was making. There must be a budget line. We're not saying that you have to give, you know, 100 million instantly to mental health. It's a build-up. You know, because in some counties we are starting from systems that are not even existing. Zero conversation on mental health. There are those who already have some programs that are running. Nairobi County has a program, Makueni has a program, I think Nyeri has a program, and you know, there are some counties that already have some programs running. And the idea is that can we now begin to upscale so that, you know, everybody down at the village can begin to feel the impact of what we are trying to achieve. You know, so there's a vision around the Act of Parliament. There's a vision around, you know, the fact that health is devolved, that the counties now need to really pick up. But it looks like a lot of our leadership still do not understand that a lot, they need to do a lot more when it comes to this situation.
And again, leaders hold a very key position and platform in the sense that people listen to them and people follow what they say. So if they, first of all, are aware of what the situation is, and even just a general understanding as far as mental health is concerned, then that will translate into actions that we will see across the divide, whether in the county levels, across our communities as well, and even on a national level as well. But let's interpret this section 226 of the Penal Code, and Eunice is here to help us really understand that anyone who attempts to kill himself or herself is guilty of a misdemeanor. The punishment is 2 years in prison, a fine, or both, and the minimum age of prosecution is 8 years old. Let's interpret that at the very basic level. Why?
Why?
Yes.
So basically, I'll start by saying that world over, the criminal justice system is founded on religious understanding of right and wrong, you know, morality. So it's not just Kenya, because also when you look at our system, our criminal justice system, it's what was given to us by the colonialists. And so when you look at writings of scholars like Thomas Aquinas and basically everywhere in the world, the concepts of what is right, what is wrong, like Aquinas really talked against suicide. And these are things that got themselves into our laws. So suicide has been criminalized previously, almost world over, all right? And how society deals with crime is this way. You know, you understand that there will be people who will, maybe our sinful nature or something has already been determined as crime. You make a way in which you will find ways to prevent that crime from occurring. And how do you do that? It's called deterrence in the criminal justice system. I'll give an example of suicide. Now, when you look at old England, you're talking about really ancient times. Because England, after 1961, already decriminalized suicide. But it was a crime there, and that's why we borrowed from England. So you can imagine they already made it not a crime in 61. Still a crime in our books. So in old England, if you committed a crime, this is how deterrence works. You would be buried in the outskirts of the town. And you'll be buried between, say, 9 p.m. and midnight. You'll be buried alone without your family members. And oftentimes you would have your property forfeited, right? What happened in other areas? Ancient Greece, same thing. You'll be buried out of town, you know, no burial rights, proper burial rights. And similar thing happened in France, for example, and it was worse there. So what are we trying to do to deter people from killing you themselves, because they are created in probably God's image and life is precious and all that. That's founded in religious teachings. But then in ancient France, for example, they would drag the body across town, face down. Yes, and they would hang you on a tree or throw you in a dump site. So that people learn not to ever do it again. So it was supposed to deter people from doing, and your property would be confiscated by the state. So if your property is confiscated by the state, people are like, no, let me not do it. You know, that's the purpose of that. The other purpose is also to punish that crime, you know, or retribution. You'll see that later. So in our books, I'd like to say that we are actually doing very badly as a nation in terms of decriminalizing of suicide. Because how it works in our legal system is there are 3 types of offenses relating to suicide. There is aiding and abetting. So if you help someone to commit suicide, either you give them drugs or you advise them, I don't think, Winnie, you should leave. The way your life is and the economic status, it's better you just kill yourself.
And we see that a lot on social media. I mean, I've spoken to attempted suicide survivors, and they'll tell you, I was so desperate that I posted something on social media, and the responses I got was, tukupatie kamba, tukusaidie na hii,
kill yourself already. Can you drink? Can we bring the poison? I think there was one artist, I forget his name. He actually posted that, you know, he's had it in life. He's an actor. and he's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And there were comments like that. The guy actually killed himself the next day, which was quite tragic, because it's someone you see making people laugh, you know, he's a comedy person, he's a local artist, but he died. And people on social media can be ruthless. So the mental health experts would best guide young people on how to deal with that. But like I was saying, you help someone to commit suicide, already they should know it's a criminal offense. If it's prosecution and you say, no, 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 please, you need to kill yourself, or you help them or buy them the drug. The other one is if you sit together and decide to kill yourselves, you know, so that means you are, you have a pact. It's a suicide pact. That you see a lot with people like Shakahola, how do you call cults and things like that, or just if you decide as friends, let's kill each other, and then probably one of you survives. But now if you go to court, you have to really prove that your intention was also to kill yourself, but you survived somehow, but you'll be prosecuted. And it will be said that you have committed manslaughter, you know, intentionally killing others. So you'll be prosecuted on that account. The final one is attempted suicide. You try to kill yourself and you fail. All right? So if you fail to kill yourself, and there have been several cases actually, people have been charged, people have been convicted, and people have been sentenced and have served time in jail, because a lot of people are not able, I think it's important to also visit jail. A lot of people are not able to afford some of the fines, because you can be fined or jailed. And people have actually been jailed for attempting to kill themselves. So you can imagine the trauma that comes with that, that possibility and the stigma.
So what you're saying is, so the law is there, and I'm going back to the referrals that you made, was more of like deterrence, like we're punishing this so that people do not follow suit, so that people do not do what these others are doing, because it is punishable by law. But my question is then, so to what impact has this helped? Because we still see people who, again, are attempting or others going to the extent of completing, and that is die by suicide. So how much of this, in terms of like deterring or preventing, has this helped? And again, like you said, many countries, you know, across the world, this is a criminal offense, but we're seeing more and more and more countries decriminalizing it. Ghana is the recent one to also decriminalize suicide. So then to what level is this helping? And what is it that we can do different? But before you answer that, can we speak to Dr. very quickly in terms of how is the law punishing attempted suicide? Or again, like Eunice said, aiding or abetting or a suicide pact. How is this helping? Because we're still seeing a lot of people who are, you know, dying by suicide, despite the fact that we have the law that, you know, punishes the same, attempted suicide.
Very sadly for me, all of us Kenyans are in prison. We are imprisoned by our past. I haven't, in recent times, come across any person in Kenya who wants this particular provision of the Penal Code to stay where it is. Whether it's the Senate, whether it's Parliament in general, whether it's the media, whether it's our patients, whether it's people in the street, we all know that punishing people for being unwell mentally is stupid, just to put it very gently. All right? So we are in a situation where we are all agreed on the fact of repealing 226. We are imprisoned by processes and procedures, in my view. Until recently, we were not entirely sure whether to go the way of the judiciary and find a declaration that this particular provision is against the Constitution, or appeal to Parliament to have it removed from our statutes. And so what we have done collectively is to approach it from many different angles and directions. But I think recently there has been greater clarity about how to approach this matter. I think it's generally accepted that the push by the Commission for Human Rights and the Kenya Psychiatric Association to go through the judicial system will continue. But I think recently we have, advice has been given to the profession to also try a parliamentary route, which is by advocating through the health committee or whatever of Parliament. And because we are all agreed, they are the expert in helping us remove this particular provision from statute. And I think I am comforted by the knowledge that that route has been generally accepted and that it will find success in the not too distant future. But I want to want on something.
Okay.
Doing big things in any bureaucracy is like trying to turn a huge tanker out at sea. There are bureaucrats whose business it is to obstruct everything that is reasonable and out of which they are eating nothing. So, although it's a good thing and all men and women of goodwill are with us, we must live with our brothers and sisters who are bureaucrats, who will stand in our way, but eventually we will sweep them away and sanity and freedom for Kenya will come.
Okay. And Sylvia said, can we first of all just get to understand the basics? Because the law is there for so many things, but people still commit crime. So then how do we strengthen that? Because again, you read about suicide and they'll tell you there's several reasons why, you know, people would die by suicide. Committing suicide is not the case. And I think this is where we'll also talk about later on the media and how we report cases of suicide. There's something that I learned recently called suicide contagion, which I think we'll talk about as we continue with the conversation. But so there's so many reasons, right? There's a mental health aspect, which is like a big issue as far as suicide is concerned. But there's so many other you know, aspects to the same. And Sylvia was saying, first of all, can we just understand mental health, mental illness? And then there are suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, suicidal, right, and even contemplating, first of all, and completing. So can we just, first of all, understand all the stuff so that we're very clear when we're talking about the law, and then we'll come back to Sylvia in terms of like legislations and, you know, what needs to be done.
I'm sure we have 3 days to discuss this. So let me, first of all, support what my sister here said about the origins of criminalization of this condition. It's all moralistic. So the thinking, and you can't blame people for thinking what they thought all those years back. That's what they knew. So people were punished for committing crimes. People are punished for committing adultery. People are punished for committing what they call suicide. Now, we have removed the word committing from suicide because our advancement in medical knowledge is such that we now know much as you can't punish somebody for having headache or having malaria or tuberculosis, you can't punish people for having a depressive illness.
That's true.
So really, and I really appeal to all of us, in the media in particular, to no longer discuss committing suicide. People don't commit, people die by suicide. You don't commit to die, So from a terminological perspective, people die by suicide, full stop. Now, I've been asked to look at what is a mental health person. I presume many of our viewers are mentally healthy this morning. Is a person in enjoyment of a state of well-being. You wake up in the morning, you're feeling good, it's a beautiful day, and you're feeling good. It's a positive state. And the second component is that a mentally health person is a human being who is able to deal with the normal stresses of life. For example, now you're stressing me. You're stressing me by asking me to give a 3-day lecture in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes, yes.
But if indeed I am mentally healthy, I should be able to deal with that particular stress and actually continue leading my life normally. And the third component is that a mentally healthy person is able to get up in the morning and, a bit like Sylvia has done this morning, come and make a contribution to their society. If you're a goat or a cow, you don't have to make any contribution. Your work is just to eat grass. But if you're a mentally healthy person, it's true. Then you wake up in the morning with all the inconvenience of so doing and come and discuss important social. That is a mentally healthy individual. So by way of summary, a mentally healthy person is not a person without disease. A state of mental well-being is not the absence of disease. it's a positive state of well-being. And that, for me, is at the center.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me not go into the theories of Durkheim and the different types of suicide that existed.
Yeah, yeah.
But allow me to debunk one or two myths.
Okay. Can you do that in like a minute before we go on a break?
Oh, I mean, I'm happy to do that. Absolutely,
right.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a break and then we'll come back.
Absolutely, not a problem.
We'll start from you, and then Sylvia will come back to you as well. When you're talking about legislation, what is it that we can do? As well, do we change it? Because the countries that colonized us and introduced, such, have decriminalized, all right? And here we are left with this section as far as the law is concerned. So what will it take for us to change that and even contribute majorly, and that is to the prevention of suicide? And that is the angle that we're tackling today. This is it a mental or is it a criminal case? And what is it that we can do to change things, all right? So that we save as many lives as possible. So we still have so much to discuss on the other side of the break. Stay with us. The show is AM Live. See you very shortly.
When you're finally released from pain. That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
Sasa unaweza furahia videos bila wasiwasi. Buy any Safaricom weekly bundle and get 500 MB of YouTube free to enjoy videos made for you. Furahia michezo utakavyo. Jielimishe, ujiinue kimaisha. Ingia Zone na YouTube. Get free 500 MB of YouTube when you buy any Safaricom weekly bundle. Just dial *544# au tembelea my Safaricom app today.
Benefits of ordering with Glovo. Glovo allows you to order anything you want at the comfort and convenience of your home. Craving fried chicken or pilau or pizza? Easy and simple. Order on Glovo today. Glovo. Order anything, we deliver in minutes.
With Glovo, you've got the city at your fingertips. Unajisikia kukula kitu different? Order Glovo. Ama treat the family with a sweet surprise. Download Glovo and get anything you want in minutes.
Senate Mashinani welcomes you home to the scenic cradle of mankind. Karibu, Turkana County.
It's been a tough start to life back in England's top flight for newly promoted Sheffield United. 4 defeats from 5 games has the Blades just outside the relegation zone, and manager Paul Heckingbottom's frustration with Premier League referees has boiled over.
And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
Following the gazettement of Two Rivers as a private, services-focused special economic zone, the first one of the kind in Kenya, there is no better time to own a home at Two Rivers than now. Text the word Cascadia to 22365.
All right, welcome back. The show is AM Live, and just in case you're tuning in right now, today our focus is on suicide because, as we all know, September is Mental Health Awareness Month, and there is a lot of connections and linkage between mental health and suicide. So today we just want to understand suicide. Is it a mental or is it a criminal case? And first of all, why is it a criminal case? All right. And what are some of the gaps? We're interpreting the law and the growing concern as well. But most importantly, what are some of the things that we can do to prevent cases of suicide? Because like we said, one life lost, that is too much. And we cannot afford to continue doing that. And again, when you look at the WHO, it says more than 700,000 suicides are reported worldwide. And that, this is on an annual basis, all right? Translating to one suicide every 40 seconds. And that is a very, very big concern for all of us. We really, really need to find different ways that we can prevent cases of suicides. And before we went on a break, we talked about several things. First of all, the onset, as far as what the law says and where it came from. You know, Eunice was telling us, you know, the origins of criminalization of suicides, you know, in different countries. For example, Kenya, this is a legacy of a colonial era. Some of these countries that actually introduced such laws have decriminalized suicide. So then why is it that we're still not like holding on to the same, but it's still in law? And what will it take for us to change that so that, as Dr. said, we approach this from a mental, you know, case, this person is sick, all right, and not a criminal. And Dr. before we went on a break, you were to tell us about the different myths as far as suicide is concerned, because we have had it wrong for a long time, right?
A very wrong time.
Yeah, very long time.
No, you've got it completely wrong. You're right.
Yeah.
So I think Sylvia had asked me to attempt to explain one or two terms, just for clarity, and then with your permission, I will go to where I was. We'll talk about the myths, yes. So what is suicide actually? You know, because we talk about it as though everybody knows, and not everybody knows. True. So suicide is death that is caused by an individual injuring themselves with the intent of dying.
That is the intent.
All right? So that's fairly clear.
Okay.
When we talk about attempted suicide, which is what we're talking about in relation to the law, because when you're dead anyway.
Yeah.
Is similar. One makes an attempt at killing themselves, but then it does not succeed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So that is an attempt at suicide. There is the intention to die, but then by God's grace, one does not die.
Okay.
There's another very important concept that is very confusing, which is the word parasuicide. The whole idea of people who attempt suicide without the intention of being dead.
Yeah.
Now, the reason this is very important is that you viewers are not qualified to decide what is an attempted suicide and which is not.
Okay.
For you, the lay person, any person who tries to kill themselves belongs to a medical institution and in the hands of a medical expert who will then determine whether this is a parasuicide, whether it is an attempted suicide, whatever it is. And the reason that is important is that one of the risk factors for completed suicide is a previous attempt. In other words, if you have made a previous attempt at suicide, you are at a higher risk of dying by suicide than those who have not attempted it.
Okay.
But just to complicate things a little bit, there is this thing about suicidal ideation. And it's actually very common. When a matatu overtakes you and hit your car, you feel like God has forsaken you, God is not there with you anymore. And feel, So lots of people have fleeting suicidal, those are not suicide thoughts as such. They're just little floating ideas. But the bottom line, and what is very, very important, is that particularly those of us who use social media, you are not qualified to determine what these things are. Once the thought of suicide or an act of attempted suicide has occurred, that matter belongs to medical expert who will determine what to do with it. And I have good news again. Many of the people that we see in hospitals these days actually are brought by the police themselves. So ironically, the police are breaking the law. Not by not taking people to judges and magistrates, but by bringing them to doctors. The world is there. And even the police know, and I commend them very much for this. So that's about what I wanted to say about the definitions. Unless you want me to say anything more.
I mean, you said 3 days. We only have less than 30 minutes to go before we complete the show. And I'm happy that you pointed that out so that we're very clear. You know, when we're talking about this, because again, when I was reading about suicide, they're saying majority of it's attempting suicide. It's several, again, goes to the same. So this person says, one does not attempt because they want to die, but because they want to end that pain. It's just sad that some people would unfortunately die. And this is through the process. So I'm a little bit, yeah, but again, like you said, it's
okay,
the medics to make that. Let's say whether this was para.
Let the expert whose day job is to make evaluations of individual human beings make the determination that in this particular case, where an attempt at suicide has been made,
was there intent?
This is the reason, and this is what I must do for this person who is sitting here in front of me. This idea that you can generalize about individual human beings is very, very dangerous, very misleading, and sadly it leads to death.
Okay. All right. So do you want to quickly just talk about the myths that you
Yes, absolutely, with the greatest possible pleasure. Absolutely. So there are a number of myths that perpetuate this particular problem. The first myth around suicide is that no one can stop suicide. Complete nonsense. All of us have a role, whether you're a parent, whether you're a pastor, whether you're an imam, whoever you are, you can actually stop suicide. Most of the people who go on to die by suicide will have told a spouse, will have told a brother, will have told a neighbor, might even have told a policeman, will have told somebody that this marriage that I am in is killing me. And I am going, people tell their sisters that. And they say, go and take a rope, surely. It's true.
It's bad,
So all of us as a society have a role that we can play to prevent people dying by suicide. So that's the first myth. We have a role. The only thing we need to give ourselves is adequate information about what to do.
All right.
The second one, myth, complete myth, is that by talking to somebody, by confronting an individual about suicide, that you make it less likely that he will die by complete nonsense again. It is the opposite. In fact, we train our doctors to actually ask, when you have a patient who comes to you and you can determine that they have a depressive symptom, you are required as a doctor to inquire gently but definitely if you have had recently any thought of ideas of ending your life. The fact that you have asked of your sister or your brother or even your whoever it is about such thought actually is a bit like a pressure cooker that you have released the valve. And people will actually say, yes, indeed, I have been contemplating the possibility. And how are you going to? So please ask your loved ones that do not fear that will give them ideas about killing themselves.
All right.
Then there's another piece of nonsense that only experts can stop this thing. I've told you, all of us are experts. All of us have a role. Another piece of nonsense that we have talked about is that those people who talk about it don't mean to die. They're just not true. Not true. Many of the people who talk about it are actually asking you, the imam, or you, the priest, or you, whoever it is, please help me. And for goodness sake, allow yourself to help them by saying, I'm not an expert in this field. But in Kenya, every county in this country now today, I think without any exception, has a psychiatrist, and all of them have psychologists and other mental health workers. It's a myth to say that only Nairobi.
That we can get.
And finally, there's this piece of untruth, which is a myth, that there's nothing you can do about people who want to die by suicide. And let me say it again. All of us can do something about it. And just talking the way we are talking here, I can tell you, people are listening. And people will listen, and they will call you, and they will tell you, thank you for hosting this program, because now I was worried about my neighbor, and now I know what I need to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, and again, we'll talk about, so then what do we do? And this is to all of us, because again, like we said, we all have a role to play. So if someone comes to you and says, you know what, I've been having these thoughts, I'm contemplating, what is it that we need to do to prevent, because we do not want to lose a life to suicide. So what is it that we need to do? You said, yes, you need to find help for this person from a professional, very, very important. But what are some of the immediate actions that we need to take, all of us, so that we prevent life from being lost? All right. So Sylvia, very quickly, we've heard what the law says, where it came from, and these countries that introduced this law have decriminalized, on their end. So when it comes to legislators and our leaders, and especially in parliaments, where, again, decisions are made, policies formulated, what role do we have? Is it time that we change the approach, first of all, from it being a crime to, a mental case that needs help, or what will it take, first of all, for us to even get there? But can we just speak on policies very quickly, and then we'll come back to Eunice to see, is it time that we change, and what are some of the steps that you think we change that?
I think even just from the conversation from Daktari here, it is clear it's about time. In fact, time passed. We are behind schedule. Yes, when it comes to changing the law on death by suicide. Yeah, it is really. It needs to be done ASAP. As soon as now, and also, just on the emphasis around everything mental health, because all this is about mental health. Yeah, it's all about mental health. And like Daktari was saying, we celebrate our country today because we've done already quite a bit. But quite a bit has been done. You cannot say that we don't have enough policy papers, action plan. In fact, there's a beautiful, detailed action plan that was rolled out. We have the act now. We have an act in place, and that's something to celebrate. That we have an act for mental health. We have investment case that tells you if you invest in our mental health, you get more productive citizens. Yes. And your GDP will begin to, will improve. There's a study, and a very detailed study that shows that. Actually,
organizations who have mental health days, which is a good thing.
Exactly. So, I mean, we are getting somewhere. Now there's a lot more awareness and everything. But where we need to move to next is what I was speaking to before, is where our leaders need to prioritize mental health. They really need to understand that a productive citizen needs to be mentally well, and therefore we need to prioritize it as a matter of urgency. Okay. From the task force report, you see there, I think this task force report, the first recommendation is to declare mental health, national emergency. Yes. And I like to repeat this. This report was published in early 2020, at the height of COVID. Yeah. By then, mental health was a national emergency. Yeah. At the height of COVID. And this is a study that was done before COVID. So we're already doing badly as a nation. Yeah. Come COVID, come election, and you know the cycle of election, what it does to Kenyans, because our elections are so emotive. Come maandamano. Yes. Come the cost of living, the cost of fuel, the cost of everything, and now university fees. I don't know what county is increasing levies. Yes. Irresponsible leaders with irresponsible tweets where Kenyans now feel our leaders don't love us. Compound all that. Yeah. And you know that emergency of 2020 is now what? Times 10.
It's escalating right now.
It's a lot worse. Yeah. The statistics we were using then of probably 1 in 4 is probably worse today if it were possible to take, a snapshot of where we are at as a country. So we're already behind schedule in declaring mental health an emergency. So what does that mean for us today is that our leaders need to prioritize it. Okay. You find it that, at the grassroots level, there are all sorts of efforts that are going on, and there's a lot happening. And I celebrate, like Daktari said, the media. We're having this conversation more and more. Yeah. The Nation, the Daily, the Business Daily I saw on last Friday had a good spread on mental health. Children, whatnot. Good conversations are happening. Yeah. Schools are picking it up. Institutions are picking it up. The private sector has picked it up very well. So all this is happening. But our budgets, our national budget, our county budgets, there's a gap there. Okay. And you see, one of the other recommendations you see from that task force is programs for promotion and creation of awareness have to be prioritized. Those will not be prioritized if they're not in budget. Okay. So that is something we need to continue putting pressure on the government. Yeah. One thing I have to say, because it's always good to celebrate something that has happened, I am aware that the mental health board that was put in place after the act, was signed into place, is now beginning to be funded, which means they're going to be active, which means we're going to start seeing, something rolling out at the national level. Yeah. And we want to see the same happening.
Translating to the county.
At the county level as well. So at least you can see, although, Daktari put it very well, the bureaucracy. Things take forever just to turn around, you know, and move. But at least if there's a step, that's a positive thing. But really a lot more needs to be done needs to be that front.
All right. And like we said, it's our collective responsibility. Exactly. We cannot just pin this on the leaders alone. We cannot just pin it on the professionals alone. All of us have a role to play. But I wonder, especially when it comes to our legislations and whatnot, what is it that we need to do? Goodwill has to be there, political goodwill. The leaders have to, again, like you said, prioritize the same. But then moving them from just good on paper, all right, and seeing it really actually, being implemented is where there's a big problem. But again, we'll pick up from there again. So Eunice, clearly, this is not working as we would want it to work, all right? Because at the end of the day, people are still losing their lives to suicide. So is it time that we change this part of the law, and what will it take for us to change? Because these other countries have, you know, decriminalized. And can we just, first of all, with understanding what is decriminalization, big word for so many people, yes.
Okay, so if something is a crime, it's criminalized.
Okay.
If something is removed from the category of crimes, it's decriminalized. So you'll be surprised to know that all of Europe, US, Canada, Australia, and several countries in Africa, including Mozambique, Botswana, Rwanda, and others, have already removed this crime from their books. And so that's why I said in Kenya, there's nothing that we should be still doing, waiting with it in our books. India, which Indian law was applicable in Kenya in earlier times, in the 20s, India passed a mental health act. And they decriminalized suicide. They stopped it from being a crime, within their Mental Health Act. All right. So the Mental Health Act of India repealed the Penal Code of India and stopped suicide or attempted suicide from being a crime, because suicide was also a crime. So what I'm saying is that we've seen cases where people have been jailed for probably different offenses. And even within the jail, they attempt suicide. What are we saying? It's not working.
We're not addressing the root cause of why is this person,
it's not working.
You know,
so probably we are dealing with people who are intellectually disabled. And the issue of terminology should not just be about, I mean, like decriminalizing should not just be about making suicide or attempted suicide not crimes anymore. It should also be about addressing terminologies. You see, there is the written books, you know, applicable law, statutes, but there's also custom. And we know, I don't know where you all come from, but where I come from, it's the same thing. When you look at our Penal Code, our Criminal Procedure Act, we still have terms like imbecile, idiots,
very bad terms,
lunatics, mentally
challenged,
people of unsound mind. You know, so those terminologies are also important in removing the stigma. So maybe we need to look at intellectually disabled, for example, and words like that that don't aggravate the stigma that is there. So as we change the law, because the law has to be changed. Probably before the end of the year, hopefully. There's a case in court, if I'm not trying to influence, but honestly speaking, there's a matter pending before court. There should be a multifaceted effort. Even in Parliament, there ought to be an attempt to still repeal the Penal Code through a miscellaneous amendment bill. The case that is in court by the Psychiatric Association, among others, ought to be determined so that this specific criminalization should be removed, you know, under the Penal Code. It's long overdue. Now, what do we do after removing that? Because like I told you, there is customary law. Under our customs, I think even now, if you commit suicide, you'll be buried just like in the old English. You'll be buried at night. Like I said, in England, you commit suicide between 9 and midnight. You'll be buried at night, no ceremony. So this stigma is still out there. And so we need to, and I'm happy to see, like Doc said, there's a lot more sensitization among youth. People are talking. You're providing the platform. This is going a long way in removing the stigma. But still, we need to sensitize our people in the counties. Once we are doing a legislative change, and it will happen, then we need also to go and talk about our custom. You know, alternative justice systems are there now in place. We need to talk to them about why it is a sickness in the villages. It's not just a crime or something wrong that someone has done. It's also they were sick. Therefore, let's give them proper burial rights and try to remove that stigma.
And they say that once a person dies, and this is by suicide, the body belongs to the state. And so the big question is then, how is this helping? You know, in terms of, I know investigations have to happen and, you know, all those things. But at the end of the day, like you're saying, this has to happen as soon as now, so that, again, we approach it very, very differently. So then what do we do to fast track this, okay? Do we all go to the streets and say, hey, listen, this is a matter of priority, or what is it that we do? Because, again, the professionals are doing their job, legislation as well, still doing its job, though not very well, but yeah. So what will it take for us to have this, you know, code change as soon as now?
Well, I believe that the wheels of change are going on. Okay. We have, at least, we have the court cases to declare certain provisions like Section 220.
Which sometimes take forever.
Which sometimes take forever.
Yes.
And that's why I'm still persuaded we need to be in Parliament to attempt to repeal. So I'm hoping I can persuade a few of us to sponsor another bill, a miscellaneous amendment to repeal this law. There ought to be petitions through Parliament, and you guys are doing an amazing job at doing what you can do by sensitizing people. We still need to work with the Council of Governors, because across the country, we still have customary law. And there's still that stigma associated with the crime of suicide in our rural areas, in our counties. So I think we all need to do a lot more. Even as the law is changing, we need our minds to change, to embrace that change of law. And like I said, Kenya is among the less than 20 countries which still have suicide and attempted suicide as an offense, as a crime. Others have since moved on. They're talking about assisted, medically assisted suicide and euthanasia and others. We need to move as well.
We need to move with speed. All right. So, and Dr. very quickly, according to the Suicide Prevention Strategy of 2021 all the way to 2026, it says the goal of the suicide prevention strategy is to attain a 10% reduction in suicide mortality by the year 2026. And this includes establish and operationalize suicide prevention program at national and county level. We've talked about that. Strengthen supportive policy, legal and financing environment for effective implementation of suicide prevention program. Improve access to comprehensive, integrated and quality services for suicide interventions at all levels of care. Increase awareness on suicide and suicide prevention and address stigma. Again, we have talked about the same, and strengthen systems for surveillance and research on suicide. 2026 is not too far from here. Are we on track? What is it that we need to prioritize as soon as now? And also, again, as we speak to county governments and what they can do in terms of, yes, awareness, but also look at some of the ways, including funding. So very quickly, 2026, like I said, not too far from here. What is it that we need to prioritize? Is it time that we also publish this in languages, you know, own mother tongue, so that people can really understand?
Yeah, two things. One, I'm a teacher by design. And secondly, I'm an old man. And I know that if you don't set targets, then you have no way of knowing when you have hit them or missed them.
Not.
So we have a target for 2026. The second thing is that as a teacher, I am satisfied that what I want in those who I teach is to have movement in the desired direction. So the question I'd like to answer is Kenya moving in the desired direction towards our target of 2026?
Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Are we there? I'm not sure.
No.
And I doubt it.
Yeah.
Can we do better than we're doing? Absolutely.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
And when you look at that action plan and the things that we have designed for ourselves, the good thing about it is that they are, all of us in different ways, are required to do different things. For example, and you will get fed up with us for praising the Nation Media Group, what this group is doing is exactly what a socially responsible media house ought to be doing, which is to tell people that we have a problem, we have an issue, and these are the potential solutions to it. Then we have people like Sylvia here, who thankfully was able to steer the act that is now guiding the movement that we are doing.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are doing different things. And again, we must commend county governments that are doing well. Makueni, I visited Makueni when I was presidential advisor. I visited Kisumu County, and I know Nairobi. Actually, unknown to people, this Nairobi city has very active programs going on in mental health. So there are lots of different cogs in the overall wheel of 2026 that are moving in the right direction. And the other thing that I can give you comfort about is that I can tell your age by the extent of your ignorance about these things. People under the, it is true, people under the age of 35 are liberated from all this business of stigmatization. And they speak the lingua of mental health like they speak hip hop or TikTok. Or it's their second language. Their mothers and fathers, on the other hand, are still in the Stone Age. And I forgive them for living in the Stone Age because, but happily they are few in number. And if time does what it does, they will become less and less relevant. So the fact that we have a lot of movement in the right direction in the youth under the age of 35, the fact that we have champions, Sylvia, yourselves, and so on, persuades me that slow as it is, we are making progress toward 2026.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Is it okay if I take that as your parting shot?
Not a problem. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
In the next 2 minutes or so, Sylvia, I'm going to give you a chance as well as we cap this. And like we've all agreed, we have a role to play. All of us have a role to play. We need to prioritize this. But again, from a leadership, perspective, what is it that you'd want to see? What are some of these conversations that you'd want to see? 2 years, not even 2 years. Let's give ourselves a year.
I would want to see a more robust approach towards mental health from leadership, from a leadership level. In fact, I would want all battalions of champions and others to come back again and let's, agitate for, more government involvement at national and county level. Want to see more programs being rolled out. Want to see finance being given to these programs to roll out. One Nairobi to upscale, they've done a good job. One Makueni to upscale, I know they're already doing it because at least I'm in touch with them. Want to see what Kisumu's law will look like. Taita Taveta passed a law on mental health at the county level. Want to see what that will look like, So we want to see this robustness coming out. But also let's not forget to tell each other that it also starts with our personal selves. This emotional intelligence and self-awareness that we need to inculcate. And the conversations that have to happen in schools amongst the young people, because mental health starts at a young age. So certain programs need to start at high school level and be upscaled into the university levels, and teaching ourselves to be more self-aware and to be more gentle with each other.
With one another.
When somebody reaches out, you reach out to that person and listen to them. Let's be a bit more gentle towards
and be more empathetic towards one another. All right. Thank you so much, Sylvia. And Eunice, very quickly, in literally 20 seconds, as far as we talked about so much fast tracking, we should have done this a long time ago and all those things. But when it comes to aiding and abetting and those people on social media who are saying, hey, see, I can give you this, I can do it. Help you go to this place and get this done. What more should we increase the punishment? Especially when we're talking about aiding and abetting in the whole suicide pact.
Okay, basically in terms of my parting shot is that if anybody has ever thought of taking their own lives, I think what I can say is that it's not abnormal. Over 80% have a fleeting thought. So it's okay, and it's okay to seek help and to see a psychologist. About 2 years ago in Saudi Arabia, there's a man who was given sentenced to, I think, 6 months in jail and 60 strokes of the cane for attempting to kill himself. We have several cases in Kenya where people have been sentenced to 2 years to 1 year in jail. So what we wish to say is that it's not working. The law in place is not working at all. It's making the situation worse. And I'm happy that steps are being taken and everyone concerned is taking the necessary steps to remove this crime from our books. So this session has been a good session, just to encourage us to move to the next level. And that's basically what I want to say. We need to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Should be in our mouths and in our WhatsApp groups and our family conversations and everywhere else, so that number one, we have a better understanding as far as what mental health is, mental illness, and what is it that we can do, and especially when it comes to addressing myths and misconceptions surrounding
really,
suicide.
In terms of the social media and WhatsApp group, people should be aware.
Yeah.
Something can be taken as procuring or enticing or advising someone to commit suicide, and it's actionable in our book. So when you see someone has reached out, it's not good to tell them, come, I give you a rope, go and buy rat poison, or come, I show you somewhere.
Message to another group.
Take this number, call me to assist you, So that can be taken as aiding and abetting, and people ought to stop doing that.
Yeah, and we should actually, I think, put more emphasis on the same so that we stop these cases. All right, and just a summary very quickly as we end the show, on the key recommendations from the Mental Health Task Force. One of them, again, like we said, is set up a Mental Wellness and Happiness Commission to monitor the state of mental health and happiness among Kenyans. Dr. Would you say we're happy? We are somewhere hapo katikati? We're trying very quickly, all right? Declare mental illness a national emergency of epidemic proportions, carry out a national mental health survey, and also fast-track the creation of Mathari Teaching and Referral Hospital as a semi-autonomous government agency for specialist referral services, teaching, and research in mental health. Dr. was not wrong in saying that this conversation could take 3 days. So, but let's put a pause here now, and then we'll continue with the same again, like I said, on our social media pages, in our WhatsApp groups, and everywhere. Let's talk about suicide. Let's talk about mental health. But for now, allow me to say very big thanks to Dr. Frank Njenga, who is the chair Mental Health Task Force, Sylvia Kasanga, former nominated senator, and as well as a mental health champion, and last but not least, the Manas Eunice advocate and arbitrator, and that is LAC Advocate. Asante sana for coming by this morning, and thank you for staying with us until the end of the show. I'm pretty sure that now we know better. So let's put a pause over here. Have yourselves, I want to say, a lovely day ahead, but I'm going to see you in the next few minutes right here on Your World. So see you very, very shortly. But from AM Live team, we say goodbye for now.